Good afternoon to you. Mark Sutter, HurricaneTrack.com here. Hurricane Outlook and discussion time. The topics today, Henri and Grace, or Grace and Henri. I guess we will start with Grace first. It is August 19th, 2021, and let's get right to it. A lot to cover. All right, so first, National Hurricane Center. We don't want to forget Fred, I guess, the remnants of Fred up here in upstate New York. And I'll show you the radar imagery from that area in just a minute. Just to kind of rehash a little bit about yesterday's rant, there's still dozens of people missing in western North Carolina from the floods. You're seeing some of the news reports come out of there, and it's pretty sobering. Flooding from a tropical storm is a big problem, and it's probably going to end up causing a pretty significant loss of life here when all is said and done. Hopefully these people will turn up somewhere and they'll be okay, but that's pretty unnerving. So the Fred remnants there in New York, moving across the region. And I'll show you the radar imagery of that in just a moment. We also, of course, have Grace moving across the northern portions of the Yucatan Peninsula. Now a tropical storm again. It weakened after making landfall early this morning. And we have Henri, the source of a lot of perhaps angst or anxiety for people that are watching up here in New England and Long Island, New York. Not part of New England, as I have discovered. New England's made up of 6 states. Long Island specifically is not part of that, so just so you know. All right, so looking at the satellite imagery here early this afternoon, we have the remnants of Fred up here. Not much to it, not like it was, thank goodness, but still some heavy rain moving through parts of that area. And we'll take a look at that really neat radar from Mark Nissenbaum, his website down at Florida State in just a moment. Here we have Grace over the Yucatan, losing some of that deep convection because it has been cut off from its fuel source, but it should re-energize over the Gulf and Bay of Campeche and make landfall somewhere over here along the Mexican coastline on the west side of the Gulf in a couple of days. And then here's Henri, and you can even see in this satellite imagery, it's got this sort of bow shape to it, where it's rounded, the edge there. That is very indicative of wind shear coming in from the north. And then we have all this activity out here in the eastern Atlantic. Lots of clouds and storminess. This monsoon trough still set up here. But we also have very dry air that's come off of the pretty robust Saharan air layer. So I don't think we're going to have too much in the way of additional development anytime soon. We did have some energy go through Trinidad and Tobago down here recently with a lot of heavy rain associated with tropical waves in the intertropical convergent zone. So just keep in mind that even tropical waves, it's just about understanding the weather in general and how it can impact you. You look at an app, it tells you what the weather is supposed to be. A lot of that is based off of no human interaction computer model output from the GFS, just raw data or other modeling, no interpretation. And so you say, oh, look, it's not supposed to do anything. Rain, storms, tornadoes, blizzards, whatever, and you get caught unaware. And these big features out here, as I say, they're bigger than us, and so you have to pay attention to them. Even tropical waves can cause issues down in parts of the Caribbean. There's one moving through there now. Shouldn't develop, but hey, it still brings heavy rain and some squalls, and that can be problematic. What's problematic as well, good segue into this, still some heavier rain showers up here in parts of New England and New York, and that's the leftovers of Fred. The heaviest rain over here in New England proper, eastern parts of New England, but this will be moving out fairly soon, and then you have to wait and see what does Henri do, and we're going to go into that, a pretty interesting analysis here that I can show you to kind of explain all this. So first, let's take a look at Grace, pretty good feeder band offshore of the Yucatan over here, and a lot of lightning in there, very heavy rain, very squally conditions still down across that region, the low-level center and the vortex, if you will, moving across. Looks like it's fairly well lined up. It's just land is keeping it from doing much. Pretty good outflow established overall. Some northerly shear over the top of it. I can show you that on the analysis from the University of Wisconsin site in just a moment. But this is going to reach the southern Gulf, Bay of Campeche area, and then come inland over here somewhere. Probably strengthen significantly. That's at least what you would expect I thought that it would reach about 100 miles per hour before making landfall. I was wrong. The dry air on the northwest side of it, some northerly shear prevented that, and that's good news. If I'm wrong, that's good. In this case, I thought it would be stronger, and in this case, it was not. But that's the wind and the pressure that we're talking about. The intensity part. What about the other impacts? Well, plenty of heavy rain, plenty of other impacts down there associated with that. So, you take a look at the whole package. Part of it, the wind, yep, I was off a little bit. What was it, about 80, I think, at landfall, something like that. But the rainfall is pretty excessive down there nevertheless. So real quick, the future of Henri, I should just fuzzy all this out. Don't even look, I'm sorry, the future of Grace. Don't even look at Henri over here. Let's just white all this out. It's funny I can do that. So don't look at this and just pay attention to Grace over here. That's Grace, right? So just watch that. Pay no attention to Henri, because we'll look at Henri more in a minute. Grace goes through, comes off the Yucatan there, pretty solid looking in the 850 field there, the 850 millibar field, moves inland, eventually over Mexico there, and it could be a category 2. That wouldn't surprise me. I'll still hold that. And I know you're like, oh, there's Henri over there. We'll get to that. But seriously, this is what we're focusing on right now. Our friends down here in Mexico, you're going to get a hurricane. No doubt about it. There will be storm surge and high wind, of course, very heavy rainfall. And then it runs into those mountains down there, and that low-level center just gets obliterated, runs into the mountains. And there's just not a lot of, the way that the model handles this, it just can't deal with that rugged terrain down there, so you just don't see much in the way of, it literally looks like it disappears. And a big reason, just so you know, why it's not coming across and curving up to Texas or up into Louisiana, why that is not happening, put a big X there. This little area right here, look at this, it's a height line, and that's the lower levels of this big Bermuda Highs, little break in it right there where Henri is, but that's just too thick of an air mass. And so this lighter air mass overall, low pressure, that's what that is, can't go into that. So you're protected there along the Gulf Coast. This time around, you don't have to worry about Grace, and you didn't even a couple of days ago. That was pretty clear. All right, so let's look at Henri now. And in the visible satellite animation, pretty easy to see. And again, it's got that rounded look to it overall, and that is the indication of some strong upper-level winds, and that is coming in from the north, so northerly shear, moving and displacing the deep convection so that this thing cannot get lined up. I have in my office some wipes, little wet ones, just to keep everything clean. So this represents today's vortex, and it's too bad I didn't cut this in half. I can show you what it looks like when it's tilted or separated. But when you have the column nice and vertical, the vortex of the system vertical, like that wipes canister, everything's lined up, then it's all systems go. If you have warm water, moist air, and other factors, it's not running over land like Grace is. Grace is lined up. It's got this, it's vertical. It's not tilted. The vortex isn't tilted. It's not separated. I can't separate this, but you get the idea. Henri is kind of tilted. The vortex alignment isn't there. The low-level center down here is separated from the mid-level center. So it's got problems, and that's keeping it from getting strong right now. Will that let up? Well, it could, and then it could get stronger, and that is the key. But it's also the key even right now. And I'll explain that more in just a minute. How strong it is now is very important in terms of where this ends up later on, both with intensity concerns, obviously, and its track. So the shear, pretty prevalent down here. Let's see, we'll use sky blue. There's some northerly shear, northerly winds coming over Grace down here. There's the Grace right there. Here's Henri, and these northerly winds are stronger. We'll zoom in on this for you. Take a look. Those northerly winds are a little bit more robust, coming across the top of Henri here, pushing those clouds away, 20 to 25 knots against it. So it's moving along, trying to go to the west and just south of west sometimes, and it's got those cloud tops being pushed away. But if it can get out from under this and start turning, it gets into an area of much lighter shear right up the axis of this big upper level area of high pressure. That's the key. When does it do that? When does the shear start to abate and allow it to develop further? By the way, look at this east of Henri, this trough carved out in here, this big tropical upper tropospheric trough, very unfavorable for development. Part of just the overall pattern, and I think that's going to shift at some point. I'll show you that in a minute. At the very end, I'll leave you with kind of, something to think about. All right, so in the favor of Henri strengthening, right here is where Henri is located, just off the map, and it is in 29 Celsius water temperature area. Trust me, it extends down to the south. So it's in a warm water temperature environment, and it's going to stay in that environment as it moves across and turns and starts to head up or whatever it's going to do. Very warm water, so that is not a hindrance at all. The anomalies, the departures from normal, water temperatures out this way are warmer by a little bit, in some cases almost by a lot, so that's in its favor. So the big thing is that wind shear. When does the wind shear let up? And that is the key here. If this abates sooner, Henri is able to move out from under that, then it could get stronger quicker. And that is important, as we note here from Philippe, who now works at the National Hurricane Center, in case you didn't know that. You'll see that name there, and I think it's Papin, but it could be Papin. Maybe I messaged him before and asked him. I don't remember. Got a lot going on, but I do want to get his name right. Philippe is the first name, at least we have that right. Love his annotations on the graphics here. We see other meteorologists do that these days, help create these infographics in motion. So to what I was talking about, to that end, you can see what's going on here, that the low-level vortex has become separated from the mid-level right here because of that shear. They got, separated, like that canister as I was showing you. If you could pull it apart in the vertical, that's what it would look like. That is not healthy for short-term strengthening. And this matters because if we look at this tweet from him, the mid-level and low-level vortex being aligned, staying aligned enough to move together and then feel the deeper layer steering, that's what's important about this, looks to be a short-term driver in the short-term track of what's going on in the Euro. Look at this interesting animation from the European here and the spread over just 24 hours. A stronger aligned Henri is more south and west, whereas a weaker, less aligned is more north and less west. It's more east. So the weaker members decouple the low-level vortex. The stronger members keep it all together. And that's where this really matters, because it's that trajectory, that turn, that's going to be so important. How far west does it get, ever? And the key here, the magic number, bring me on for a minute, is about 71 or 72 degrees longitude. Cape Cod is just on the inside of roughly 70 degrees longitude. If you go up to the state of Maine and the Gulf of Maine and Nova Scotia, they're solidly on the east side of 70 degrees longitude. But west of there, 71 degrees, 72. And remember, the distance between each longitude line at this part of the northern hemisphere is roughly 60 nautical miles. So every 10, 20, 50, 100 miles, of course 100 miles sounds pretty large, that's going to make a big difference in the impacts for New England and possibly even eastern Long Island, because if this gets stronger sooner, it feels the deeper steering flow, which is going to track it closer, will track it closer to the Northeast United States as a geographic region, and specifically New England. And there's no way to know, in terms of looking at a forecast, for which model is going to get it right. Nobody knows. We have to watch the satellite animations, like I just showed you here, see if stuff aligns when Recon gets out there, see what they're showing, and then we'll see. But the bottom line, the sooner this strengthens, the more west it will go. And I can show you that in the modeling here. It's very, very easy to see. So this is the 12Z GFS. It was initialized 12 Zulu time, which means 8 a.m. Eastern. It's a synoptic time. And this is a little different map than I'm used to showing you. This is the 6-hour average precipitation rate and the mean sea level pressure. This is the model's interpretation of what Henri should kind of look like, if you will, and its pressure down at the surface with the rain and so forth. So let's watch this, move it into motion. There it is, moving westward. Those pressures, 997, 24 hours out, so tomorrow morning, 995. It moves along, and let's just put a longitude marker here. I love that Dr. Cowan has allowed the map to be able to do that. So it gets about to 72.7. So it makes it as far west as 72 degrees longitude, which is right about central Long Island plus or minus. And if it went due north. So yeah, that matters. It gets back to at least that far on the 12Z, but then it starts to really fade northeast from there. You see that? It gets down to 977. So it goes from about 990 to 977, 974 going northeast, 973. Solid hurricane, no doubt. And then it does not directly, well, I guess it's in how you look at it, the core of it, if you want to call it that, doesn't make landfall in eastern New England there. Instead, it moves up into the Gulf of Maine where water temperatures are really cold, and that would just be that. It would be a rainmaker and, problematic. There are going to be impacts, but this is far different than just 6 hours earlier, the 6Z GFS that ran initialized at 2 a.m. Eastern Time. So just 6 hours earlier, the previous run of the same model brings it out. It's kind of, 990s, whatever, 987, starts really strengthening sooner. All right, so that's the key here. And so this gets back all the way to 73.9, almost 74 degrees west longitude. And then it goes on to strengthen further into the 960s, 950s. Really strong Category 3 hurricane, probably. I mean, you can even see almost an eye in there in the modeling. 950s, and then it's able to actually fade back and lose a little, or gain a little longitude there, making landfall in southeast New England. That's a big deal right there, those changes. And you might look at the 12Z and say, it's probably not going to hit now. Well, we don't know that. I don't know that. I got to figure out if I'm going to be heading up there, because that's a 14-hour drive. You people that live up there, I was going to say folks and people, that would be feeple. You people up there need to be getting ready potentially. And what do you need to be getting ready for? Some gusty winds and some big ocean swells, maybe some overwash, or a bona fide hurricane. And we don't know the answer to that. Just 2 model runs separated there on the GFS. 1 model, 2 different runs, 6 hours apart. That's a pretty big deal in terms of the overall outcome. So we don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But the key is, the stronger this gets sooner, I think helps to dictate whether or not it truly makes landfall in New England as a hurricane, or close to it. And that's the key to watch here going forward. All right, so we'll be watching that. You can give Philippe a follow on Twitter there. Again, he's down at the National Hurricane Center. And, hey, PhD, I didn't realize that. Awesome. So, he'll put more of these annotations out there. It's awesome. I love it when he does that. So before I let you go, a little bit of a lull right now, but our good friend from New Zealand, Ben Knoll, tweeting that indications are the Atlantic will remain busy into September. A convective pulse in green there. Forecast to move across the basin, Africa, and the Indian Ocean around the turn of the month. So a little bit of a lull in new activity, as I talked about yesterday, kind of a downturn right now. It's not always just going to be jacked up with storm after storm. Even in 2005, we had these periods where there was a little bit of activity, or the activity became very little, and then we would have a big uptick about every 2 weeks. And that looks like what's going to happen here through September and October, and probably extending into November. Just letting you know, it's going to be a busy time ahead. And we've got to deal with Grace down for our friends in Mexico. And, of course, Henri, which that story still to be written. All right, connect and follow with us. Twitter, I post stuff on Twitter. We have a back-end team, mainly our good man CJ, that posts on Facebook for me. for us, the team of us at Hurricane Track. I'm on YouTube, of course. Subscribe and share and like the videos if you don't mind. If you don't like them, that's okay too. I do the best I can and try to teach you something. And we are crowdfunded through a remarkable bunch of people, if I can highlight it, through Patreon. It is a website and an app that allows you to crowdfund stuff that's important to you. You can get behind it, literally invest in what we're doing. You get access to our interactive maps and all kinds of stuff, all of our remote cams. Every bit of that is part of that Patreon crowdfunding effort to support this project, and it's linked in the description of this and pretty much every video. All right? So I will be preparing something. I'm going to be getting ready to go to New England and just assume that my presence will be needed up there. Worst case scenario, I get up to Maryland or somewhere tomorrow evening, and I turn around and come back. Worst things can. This is my job. This is what I do. I'm not going to cry about that if that happens, and which is in the end that would be a good thing for our friends up in New England. I've met a few people over the years because I've gone up there for blizzards and those bomb cyclones that form off of the New England coast. That's always been in the dead of winter. I've been up to the Northeast for Sandy. That was New Jersey, mid-Atlantic Northeast area. And I went to Maine in 2008 for Hurricane Kyle. It petered out on the way into the Gulf of Maine. It ended up being a big-time non-event. This could lie somewhere in between. We'll see. So I think odds are I might make it to New England, and we'll see what happens from there. All right, so in the morning I'll do an update, and we'll know a lot more by tomorrow, and we'll take it from there. As always, thanks for tuning in and giving me a part of your day. I appreciate your time and attention from whatever device you are tuning in from. It's awesome to have you here. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you some more tomorrow.